Hey guys, hope you all are doing well. We're going to start our Civil War essay today, but I want to review some of the major events one more time. And I've got this video that uses a map to kind of go through the whole war, and I think that's going to be very helpful. So pay very close attention here, especially if you do the turning point topic for your essay. This I think will be real useful. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. So you see this map here. I'm going to hit play. And you're going to see Lincoln gets elected, which we know shortly after that, South Carolina will secede. Okay, you're going to see it right there, right? They're red now. They are in the Confederacy now. Okay, now you're seeing a bunch of other states seceding. Okay, the blue here is now states that have declared themselves in the Union. Lincoln is sworn in. Fort Sumter, right? The first battle that really starts the war. And now you're going to see a few more states secede. So you got now Confederates in red, Union in blue. You've got your border states. Remember, for a while, Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, Delaware. We weren't sure what they were going to do. They end up sticking with the Union. So not long after, boom. Now we have our battle lines, okay? Now, as the red moves forward, that means they're gaining territory on the Union. And if the blue moves down, that means the Union is gaining territory on the Confederates, okay? I'm actually going to go ahead and push forward just a little bit to get to more important events than what we're focusing on. Okay, every time you see that explosion, it's a battle, okay? And the name of the battle is listed with it. So there's tons of battles, as I mentioned before. We only covered the really big ones. So there's Shiloh. Okay, we talked about Shiloh, very bloody battle. Actually, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit more again. I'm going to skip Antietam, mainly because the map part isn't really essential. What hopefully you remember from Antietam was that the Union wasn't doing as well as it was hoping at this point, and Antietam was a win that just finally gave them some confidence, and also it gave Lincoln the confidence to pass the Emancipation Proclamation. So it was definitely a very important event. What I do want you to notice before I hit play here is we're getting a little bit, sort of midway through the war here. And you see this blue line going down right here. This is along the Mississippi River, okay? This is the Union trying to capture the entire Mississippi River so that, again, they can use that Anaconda plan to surround the Confederate troops, okay? Keep an eye on that. Also, try to keep an eye on this right corner here. I'll try to call that out too. Okay. So you see here the siege of Vicksburg is starting. So they've surrounded the city. I want you to pay more attention to this top right, though, for a second. Watch how that line goes up right there, okay? That is General Lee making his advance into the Union territory one last time, right? He really thought, let's go on the offensive, and maybe we can turn the war in our favor, okay? So now we kind of have to watch both of those spots. Yeah, I'll just hit play. So Gettysburg, boom, Union wins at Gettysburg, and you'll see that the red line starts to retreat because there was a failed invasion, and Lee never tries to invade the North again. And then Vicksburg, just kind of watch what happens here. Okay, so especially with Vicksburg, notice how they have captured the entire Mississippi River, this whole blue line there. So they have actually separated this group of Confederates from this group of Confederates over here. So that's super important. Now they can surround each section much more than they could before, okay? I'm going to skip ahead one more time because we're going to get to kind of the last really big event that we've been talking about. So, yeah, I'm going to play it a bit, and I'll let you know what you should be seeing. All right. Take a look. There's gonna be one more for Sherman to win Atlanta. Yep, right there. So that was the second time we saw that. At this point, Sherman captures Atlanta, and shortly after, you're gonna see he marches his troops all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. That's why they call it the March to the Sea. And we'll see kind of how important that was. Lincoln reelected. Shortly after that, March the sea begins. Whoa, check that out. Okay, and yeah, it ends with capturing Savannah on the coast. Look at this now, okay? Now they have them broken up into 3 separate sections, all right? And notice how the Union can really surround each section, and they've got nowhere to go, right? Again, that's all part of the Anaconda plan. So you're just, hopefully this is helping you really visualize how some of these strategies and some of these battles really helped turn the tide of the war. Well, let's go and keep watching because you're going to see things are going to start to fade quicker now that the Union is really in a good spot. They're really carving them up over here in the northern portion. You saw Petersburg. So you just saw Petersburg there, which you saw very quickly then led to Lee's surrender at Appomattox. And then very quickly after that, Lincoln was assassinated. All events we've talked about. And then you're going to see things really die down very quick now. And pretty soon that red's going to fade on the left. Now it's all blue. And then now it just goes back to being yellow again. Because there is no blue and red once the Union won the Civil War, right? Now we're all one country again, okay? There's no Union, no Confederacy. Okay, I hope that was helpful for you guys. I find it very useful. In fact, I'm going to post it in Google Classroom because you may even want to use that as one of your sources for your essay. Speaking of the essay, let's talk about it. So it says here, students must complete an argumentative essay on the Civil War. So you have 2 different approaches you could do. I created one topic for you. So let's look at that first. Number 1, the turning point topic. Okay, and that simply is choose the event that you think was the turning point for the Union in the Civil War and write an essay defending that claim. Okay, and you've got some experience getting some ideas for that. And so hopefully you did a good job. You feel good about your answer because you could pick either of the ones that you picked because you've done 2 now as the one you want to do for that essay. Okay, so this is one I'm going to model this topic a little bit too. So if you feel uneasy about the other topics, it might be a smart move to stick with this topic because it's the one we've talked about the most. However, if you want to try something different, that's totally fine. And so that's number 2. I put, you can just create your own topic as long as it's about the Civil War and it's an argumentative topic, as long as you're making some kind of argument. So, I did put some options there to help you get thinking if you want to do something different. So you could focus on the advantages and disadvantages. Okay, you can make it argumentative by saying this side had the advantage going into the war. You could focus on, we talked about General Grant and General Lee. You could make an argument about which one was the better general. We talked about Lincoln's views on slavery. You can make a claim about what his views on slavery were and do an essay defending that claim. Or you could do something totally different as long as it's about the Civil War, okay? So that's up to you, but these are requirements below right here. You will need an introduction, which will include a hook, background information, and a claim, okay, which I will talk about more as we get writing and working. After your intro, you will need at least 2 paragraphs defending your claim, basically meaning in each of those you need to give a piece of evidence and explain your reasoning, how it supports your claim. You will then need to have a paragraph that is in which you present a counter argument and then give your rebuttal, okay? That's something you've done in years past, but I don't think we've talked about that this year. So again, I'm gonna spend a day reviewing those skills during our work time. You will end with a conclusion, which includes a summary and a wrap-up. And I just want to make sure it's also clear here that every time you give a piece of evidence, you need to credit your source, which most of the time is probably going to be Discovery Ed, but we'll talk about that in a second. The due date will be the end of the day, Monday, October 26th. So you're going to get 4 work days. You're going to have Wednesday today, Thursday, Friday, and Monday. Plus, you've got a weekend in there if you need to get work done as well. Okay. And I put, last of all, right here, recommended options for the turning point essay. So this is only if you do the turning point topic. These are the events I would recommend. These I think you can easily make the best argument in favor of them being the turning point. So I highly recommend you pick one of those events. And notice how these are the things we focused on the most in the video I was just showing you. So I was trying to illustrate to you how important each of those are, okay? And I told you where each one is in Discovery Ed, because those little summaries I gave you aren't probably going to be good enough to do an essay on. There's just not going to be enough info. So you're going to want to use Discovery Ed when you want to get your actual evidence, okay? And you do have the option to also use outside sources like websites. The key thing is that you need to credit your source and just make sure you're understanding it and it's quality info, okay? Last thing for this portion is I always have the rubric for an essay like this. So you can see exactly what you need to have to get a 3 out of 3. You can see what you need to have to get a 2 out of 3, and then how you get a 0 or a 1. I will let you look at that at your own time and pace. And yeah, I recommend using that to make sure you know you've got everything you need for the assignment. Okay. Let's talk about the graphic organizer now. Now, I have a graphic organizer posted as well, and it's not required, but I highly recommend that you use it, because this is going to help walk you through and prepare your essay in a way that makes sure you have everything you need before you actually write the essay. So you'll notice the first 2 work days I'm putting down as my suggestion is that you spend those 2 days getting the graphic organizer done. And then the last 2 work days, you can take that info and flesh it out into an actual essay, okay? So what you would want to start with is your claim, okay? But you don't know what your claim is unless you know your topic. So I'm just going to do 2 different examples here. Let's say that I wanted to do a different topic, and let's say I wanted to do a topic on the advantages and disadvantages. Maybe I just found that interesting. So if I'm going to do that topic, I have to decide what I'm going to argue. Okay, so basically, I'm probably going to argue who had the advantage going into the war. Well, I think the Union had the advantage, so that's my claim right there. I'm going to say the Union had the advantage going into the Civil War, right? Your claim is just your argument. What are you trying to prove? So let's say I was going to do the turning point topic instead. The question wasn't really a question. The directions are that you need to choose an event that you think was a turning point for the Union in the Civil War, okay, and then defend it. So I actually don't think this was the turning point, but I'm going to use it as an example so that you're not, so you're going to do something different than me. So I'm going to say the Siege of Petersburg was the turning point for the Union in the Civil War. Again, that's all you're putting for the claim. You're not putting any evidence yet. You just need to tell us what is it you are trying to prove, right? What are you claiming? That's what I'm claiming. And again, I'm going to stress, don't pick Petersburg. It was a helpful event for the Union, but it was much later in the war. The tide had already been turned for the Union by the Siege of Petersburg, okay? And that was something I actually put a lot of notes on people's assignments from 2 days ago. People pick the surrender of Appomattox too, a lot at least. And I said, like, for most of you had nice sounding explanations. So I said, you're showing good skills here, but I don't recommend you pick the surrender of Appomattox either, because at that point, the war was very close to ending. And remember, a turning point is when the war shifts in your favor. So you want to think about when, like, either the Union's kind of losing or it's tied, and what event to you do you think really pushes the Union forward and helps turn, right? So it's called turning point, turn the tide of the war in the Union's favor, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and model this with Petersburg anyway, just so you can see how these things can work. Okay, so if I got my claim, I want to start collecting evidence. For each piece of evidence, I'm going to write it down here. I'm going to put what source I got it from, and then I'm going to explain my reasoning, okay? So let's actually pause real quick and just check out some brief vocab. When you choose to put a piece of evidence down, you have 2 options. You can paraphrase it, okay? That means put it in your own words, or you can write it word for word. The only thing is, if you write it word for word, you have to put quotation marks around it. It's called a direct quote, okay? those are your only options. You can't put it word for word and not put quotation marks around it. That's a form of plagiarism because that's acting like those were your words. They weren't your words, right? And either way, whether you paraphrase it or quote it, when you write about it in your essay, you still need to tell us what source you got it from, okay? And I'll be stressing that again in a later lesson. So let me show you an example. Again, let's say I'm focusing on Petersburg, and I'm reading in Discovery Ed, and I see, oh, this seems like a good piece of evidence. On April 2nd, 1865, the Union succeeded in capturing the final supply line, the South Railroad. Okay, so I go and I write that down. Oops, in here. On April 2nd, 1865, the Union, let me go back and read it again. Succeeded in capturing the final supply line, the South Railroad. Now I'm going to do a quick stop and jot. I want you guys to go ahead and tell me what I just wrote down there for my first piece of evidence. Was that, did I do that as a paraphrase or as a direct quote? Okay, go ahead and pause and just write down either paraphrase or direct quote in your social studies notebook. Okay, I'm going to assume you've done that. And hopefully you said direct quote, okay? Because I wrote that word for word from Discovery Ed. But there's a problem, right? Hopefully you notice there's a problem. I wrote it as a direct quote, but I haven't shown my reader it's a direct quote. So to make sure I'm not plagiarizing, I put quotation marks around it. That tells your reader, I did not write these words myself. I got them from somebody else, okay? Now, I am going to say here, I don't really need to quote this word for word, though, okay? The only reason you really should be quoting something word for word is typically when it's like from a primary source and you want to be able to really show, oh, this is what they said. This is their original words. But typically, if it's just information, just describe it in your own words, okay? That shows, that's just better writing, okay? So I'm just going to put that in my own words. April 2nd. I'm going to still start with the date, so that's similar, but then I'm going to say the Union was able to capture the Confederates' last supply line. This line was called the South, oh my gosh, Railroad. Okay, just kind of explaining it the way I would say it to somebody else. There's my evidence, okay? Let's pause and do another stop and jot, okay? Jot down in your notebook, what source did I get that from? What should I write in this next part of my graphic organizer? Okay, I'm gonna assume you wrote that. Hopefully you said Discovery Education, because that is where I got the information from. That's all it means for source. The last one, and we're starting to improve in this area, so I'm glad I'm seeing good progress, is reasoning. I've told you something that happened at the Siege of Petersburg. I have not told you how that turned the tide for the Union. I haven't explained how it supports my claim, how it shows that they gained momentum, okay? So that is what my reasoning is. It's basically just saying, why did I pick that evidence, right? How does it prove my point? So I'm going to go ahead and put some reasoning here. We're going to look at my notes. I kind of put some notes down. I'm going to go ahead and put, this was a turning point for the Union because without their supply lines, the Confederates had no way of getting ammunition and food to their troops. The troops wouldn't last long without these things and would start losing a lot of battles. Okay, so a couple sentences there. notice how I started out by saying this was the turning point because making it very clear that I'm linking my evidence back to my claim. And I'm just explaining why. Like, what was so important about this event that helped the Union moving forward? Well, they deprived the Confederates of supplies they needed, and because of that, they were able to win a bunch of battles, okay? That's just for one piece of evidence, right? I would go on and I'd do the same thing for number 2, get another piece of evidence, put my source, explain my reasoning, and then if I really wanted to, if I thought I could put a third piece of evidence, that's not, you can do that. That can be helpful, but you don't have to. You might just go ahead and move on to your counter argument and rebuttal section, okay? For today, I think this is a good goal right here, okay? Get your claim, get at least one piece of evidence, and have your source for it and your reasoning, okay? I'm going to go ahead and delete this for now, though, and I'm going to kind of show you basically what I just said. The last thing I just want you to see, and I'm going to leave this up when I close off so you can keep it up while you work. You could always pause it at the end of the video and keep it up. Step 1, choose your topic, okay? Either do the turning point topic or come up with some other topic about the Civil War. Number 2, decide what it is you're actually going to argue. That's going to be your claim, and write your claim in the graphic organizer. Number 3, go to the evidence section and start collecting your evidence and filling out the stuff that goes with it, okay? Try to get at least one of your pieces of evidence today and have your source and your reasoning with it. If you get more done, that's great, but at a minimum, that should be the goal. And then everybody, before they sign off, should complete the exit slip. All right, you're going to see that as a Google form on this assignment on Google Classroom. Make sure you do that. That is the thing I'm going to use to check to see that you were logged in doing what you're supposed to do today. Okay, good luck. This is day 1. Let's get to a good start with the essay, and let me know if you have questions. See you guys.